All right. Golf Clash has announced a new tournament. It's the Highlands tournament, and it's going to all be at Granite Point here. Got all the Granite Point holes. Of course, they're not in the order that they're going to they're actually in the Granite Point course. We'll be able to practice these in Tour 5, 9, and 12, starting on Thursday, July 30th, which is tomorrow. That'll be good news. Get some practice. There's a lot of these holes we haven't played in a long time, and there's some of them that we've played quite a bit over the last couple years, but there's a few of the holes that we have not played for a while. So let's talk about the holes here. What I've done at the YouTube channel is I've set up a Golf Clash Highlands Tournament Rookie Scouting Report. I've set up a playlist and I put in 7 videos. So there's 2 holes that I don't have videos for. I don't have videos for hole number 6 or hole number 7 of the tournament. That's Granite Point hole number 9 and Granite Point hole number 5. So let's go check out at Golf Clash Notebook and check out the hole. So pen and paper. Hole number 1 of the tournament is going to be Granite Point number 1. Hole number 1. Hole number 2 of the Highlands tournament will be hole number 2 of Granite Point. Hole number 3 of the tournament will be hole number 7 of Granite Point. And my understanding is that there's a couple of holes, there's 4 holes that they have changes on. I'm not sure how significant the changes are, but hole number 7 of Granite Point is supposedly they've made some changes to that hole, but I don't know what they are yet. Hole number 4 of the Highlands tournament will be Granite Point hole number 4. Hole number 5 of the Highlands tournament will be hole number 3. This is another hole that they've supposedly made changes to. Hole number 6 of the tournament will be hole number 9 of the Granite Point course. Hole number 7 will be Granite Point hole number 5. Hole number 8 will be Granite Point hole number 8. This is another hole that they've supposedly made changes to. Hole number 9 is going to be Granite Point hole number 6. And that one they've also made changes to. So let's go, let's walk through the holes. I'm not sure, like on the ones that have changes, we'll have to wait and see like how the changes affect certain shots. But unless they've completely redesigned the courses, they may have changed some distances. So some shots are a little bit harder, but we'll have to wait and kind of play those by ear. Any elevations or anything that we had on those holes may be completely out the window. And a lot of that stuff is always kind of out the window anyways, just because if the wind changes from one direction to the next, it can make a big difference. So let's go through them. Hole number 1, Granite Point. So in the tournament, Highlands tournament, hole number 1 is hole number 1. This is par 3. So there are 3 ways that you can play at it. There's actually 4. The black line, there's 2 different ways. You can bounce over from here or you can bounce off of the rough and do a rough bump. Typically in rookie play, this is the best series of shots right here. And in the past, I've played this almost exclusively. Like every time I get here, it's with a 10%, but this 10% is suspect. This is one of those holes that sometimes I'm like on and sometimes you're just like always super close. So this week, the focus will be on, depending on which way the wind's blowing, is trying to dial this number in, because I'm not absolutely sure 10% is the right series of numbers. Typically, when you're playing in the upper divisions, if you're playing from the second tees, you're going to find yourself a lot. This shot over here is great, especially if you have a Thor's hammer, because you can get the backspin that you need, and it's got a little bit of curl to bring it back around. The white shot where you're hitting all the way over is probably, if you're taking a shot where you're trying to run it up there, you might have a little bit better shot on the white line of trying to sink hole-in-ones consistently than the yellow, but I think it's just all about shot setup. I'm going to be focusing on the black line all week, either bouncing off of the fairway here or doing the rough bump, and I've done them both, and it's hit or miss. It's one of those deals where it's just like you're always just like right there. So we can dial this shot in to increase our odds of hole in one. It's going to be with a sniper, and I didn't write down what ball that I normally use on this, but it's got to be I'll have to go back through and watch the videos that are in the playlist to see what ball I needed. I'm not sure on side spin. I think the deal is that you need more side spin than you can get with a 1 power ball. So a nab might not work. You might have to bring a quasar, but I'm not sure. All right, that's hole number 1, black line. That's the line we want to focus on this week. And I'm going to explore that rough bump a little bit more. I've done the rough bump in several tournaments, and I've done where I bounced off the fairway. And I'm not sure I've been more successful on either one, but I'm going to continue to work that this week. Hole number 2 of the Highlands tournament is going to be Granite Point, hole number 2. All right. I'm going to take the black line. Now, it's not that you can't take the white line, but I'm going to take the black line and try and bleed myself out. And this shot right here is it's all about, it's literally, you're trying to do a second bounce rough bump and then bleed out of the rough and run up to the cup. And it's very easy to find yourself in one of two positions. It's very easy to find yourself either getting caught up in the rough or blowing past and ending up back here on the backside. So controlling your ball as you come up here, it's all about the top spin, and it's all about setting that drive up. We want to bring a big enough ball that we don't have to use any overpower. Because when you're trying to do a second bounce rough bump and you're doing overpower, there's so much inconsistency built into that overpower because you don't have any gauge like, okay, I was only using half overpower. Well, this time you're using half plus 3%, you know, and that 3% throws you way off, or you're using half plus minus 3% and it throws you way off. So it's ideally when we do these kind of shots, we don't want to use the wind. We don't want to do any overpower. We want to set the shot up, make our adjustment, hit our perfect. Try and set it up so we can hit it great to the left or the right. It still bleeds out. It's on the green. We make a putt and we get the hell away from this hole. This is a hole that we definitely need to get eagle on. I mean, there's a couple par fours in this game that we need to get eagles on every time, and this is one of them. This one's a little bit tougher than the other one just because it can be a little bit inconsistent, but I'm going to take the black line, bouncing off in this area up here. I want to give myself plenty of room from this rough. Trying to get a bounce that's in the rough, trying to bleed out and go right towards the cup. So the last time we were here, I was using an extra mile and I was using 5 topspin, maximum left-hand side spin. And it wasn't quite maximum because you couldn't get max on with the 5 topspin. But trying to, the ball guide's going off in this direction and trying to make up the swing with the side spin to get it to go back towards the cup. Trying to hit it perfect, trying to stay where your problem thing is if you don't set it up right, you get too far to the left, you could end up in the sand. I see a lot of people that do come from this side over here and then bring it back around. It's what I find tricky about this is that where your first bounce is, you're out here in the clear, and when you're trying, so your ball guide's going like this, and you're trying to make up this distance right here. So when you swing it around with your top spin, it's easy to get caught up in the sand over here or get caught up in that area trying to swing it around. Whereas from this shot right here, it's just all really about topspin. If you can get your topspin right with the ball that you're bringing out, then you'll be able to float up to the cup. And I really think where my problem has been on this hole and over the years of playing it is that there is an adjustment on the drive. And so I find myself in varying spots here because I think that there's probably like a plus 10 or a plus 20% adjustment on the drive. And if I did that adjustment on the drive, then I would end up in a very similar spot every time. And so this week, my goal is to try and figure out, like, I really want to go through it. And this is why it's so important to record your own gameplay, is I want to start off a couple 2 to 2.5 rings off of this transitional surface. And I really want to focus on where my ball is landing, so that I can see if I need to do an adjustment here so that I can try and tighten up the landing spot in the rough so that I'm in a more consistent rollout towards the cup. That's my goal this week, because this is a hole that I've had a lot of success on, but this is also a hole that if you don't pick it up, it can ruin your round, and you need to pick it up every time. So we want to really focus on trying to get consistent on this hole. All right, that was hole number 2. Hole number 3 is Granite Point. Hole number 3 of the Highlands tournament is Granite Point, hole number 7. And supposedly there's a change on this hole, and I'm not exactly sure what that change is. Now, in the past, I've traditionally played this with a QB with very little topspin and playing it out into this area right here, either using a katana or a kingmaker, and trying to come at it with either, in most cases for me, I would probably bring the katana so that my red line's pushed back so that I have enough room here. I'm doing a rough bump to the cup, and I could do that rough bump with a sniper because I got great ball guide and everything's good. If you bring out a bigger ball, what can happen is, depending on where you hit out here, you can actually end up in between clubs where you can't do the rough bump and your long iron is way out here in the rough. And so you'd have to do overpower. So there's a couple ways that you can get around that. Number one, hit farther forward so you can push that red line forward so that you can get farther into your long iron, or hit it shorter, closer back and lay it up more so that you're in your sniper range. The other way you can do it is, this is one of those holes that you can bring a Goliath. And a Goliath, the red line, here's sniper. Here's your red line, and here's Goliath. Okay? I mean, there's no red line. It's 1 second you're in wood, and the next second you're in Goliath. And so if you're having red line issues down in this area, bring a Goliath, because a Goliath, like if you've got varying spots down here, your Goliath will be able to pull you out. Because if you're in your sniper range, take your sniper shot. If you're not and you're in between clubs, bam, you're in Goliath. And it's right there. I'm not a big fan of Goliath, but I can definitely see the benefit on this hole of using that type of club. For me, I would use a Grizzly. I would use a Grizz. And I would try and find the spot out here where I could lay up so that I was either farther forward so that I was always in my Grizzly, or I was farther back so I was always in my sniper. So traditionally, that's how I played this hole. But the last time we played this hole in a tournament, the deal is that this is one of those holes that, here's the green. Here's what the green looks like. It's like this, and here's your pin. And it's downhill. And then this area here is flat. And so from the trajectory, when you're out in this area right here and you're coming at the pin, you've got to engage this downhill. And so there's a little bit of slope. So the ball is not just, it's not just like where you hit the ball and it's rolling out. As it rolls out and the ball slows down, it's picking up more of the break, and it tends to float off trajectory. It's kind of like if you play real golf and you're hitting the break. Sometimes you can hit the ball too fast and you hit through the break, and sometimes you hit it too slow and the break makes you go like it really breaks. And so like trying to ride that break on a wood shot can be very tricky. And so this has been one of those holes that was hit or miss. So the last time we played this hole, I changed even though it's not like out on the field, it doesn't look like a huge deal. I came out here with an extra mile, and I started off right here with max topspin, and I got myself out into this area. Same club, same distance. Out here I was definitely in my long iron range. And I could still do a rough bump, but I was just changing the angle that I was coming in at the cup. So then instead of coming in from this angle and engaging any of this hill, I was trying to come in from this angle so that I was more on the flat. And even though I was not in max club, I didn't worry about that when I set the shot up the last time we played this in a tournament. What I did was I picked one per ring, because it's a 100% accurate club. I picked one per ring. It's easy to do the math. And I kept working my wind adjustment until I could make one per ring work. And what I found was with my Grizzly, I came out here and I did minus 25% on the wind at one per ring. And then I was adding on plus 0.1 or 0.2, just depending on, like if my number was 21.5, then I went to 23. If it was, so I picked up the half. I added on 1 and then I rounded it to the next number. So just kind of like working that. And in the last time we played this tournament, I think in 5 shots to the cup, I think I hit 3 or 4 albies just by changing my position out here and working this number. So I probably was more towards mid club, which would have been 1.2 per ring instead of 1 per ring. And then it would have changed what I was adding on or taking off for wind. I think what you're going to see a lot of people do is they're going to pick the 1.2. Hey, I'm in mid club, and then they're going to do an adjustment from there. But I wanted to stick with the 1 per ring because it was easier to do the adjustment at 1 per ring. And so I just continued as the week went on to adjust my number here until I arrived at a number that I was starting to sink shots at. So you do have some ways that you can go with this. I've often wondered from where we're at out here, especially with an extra mile 9, or even maybe a upper developed big topper like a big topper 7, like whether or not we could actually get over to this green. I think the benefit, I mean, you're going to still have to take a shot to get up to the cup. It may be a short iron shot, but there may be a way to get over to this so that you can do it. But I think it's going to be one of those risky shots where you could potentially end up in the sand or the rough, where traditionally we're looking at somewhere in this area out here as our landing spot. And so it's just going to depend on the angle that you want to come in at the green. All right, that was hole number 3. Hole number 7 of Granite Point. Hole number 4 of the tournament is going to be hole number 4 of Granite Point. Hole number 4. And you have a bunch of different ways that you can go with this. I think for the most part, if you've got lower developed clubs, the yellow line is going to be your line. And the yellow line has some things to offer when you have lower developed clubs. It's fairly easy to get out into this area. And you don't have to use max topspin. You're only going to need to use, even if you have an extra mile 6, 5, your key is that your first bounce is here. It's going to take a 3 power ball. Tighten works well when you've got lower developed clubs. You could use a Kingmaker. But you may have to use the wind if you've got lower developed clubs, and the Titan will help you do that. First bounce here, second bounce clearing this. Now, here's the problem with the second bounce. You're coming in on this trajectory. You're coming in on this trajectory. But where you really want is you want to get up into here. And the reason that you want to get up into there, if we open, let me pull this back just a little. The reason you want to get up into here is because it opens up more of this fairway going to the green. So the farther you're down over here, you're having to pinch more and more up into this area right here. So that means you're going to need a club with backspin. Whereas if you get up into this area, you have the opportunity to kind of run the ball up there. So you don't need a club with as much backspin. So if you got lower developed clubs, the more you can get up into here, the better. The problem is you're coming in on this trajectory. So the only way to get up there is to you can use some side spin, but the more side spin you put on, the more it pulls it this direction, the closer you get to this rough. If you use curl, it only takes just a little teeny bit of curl, and you're going to clip that rough, and then you're going to lay up right there, which you can still get on from there, but you could get caught up in this rough. So it's more important to get right here than it is to get that extra little bit to get up there. So if you got lower developed stuff, it may be a little bit harder to get farther to the left. So don't worry too much about it. Just get out there into this area and don't bleed too far forward. If you got really low developed stuff, you may have a difficult time with a razor or something other than a Nirvana of actually recovering. If you've got a Nirvana in your bag and you bleed out and you get too far, you can recover from here. You can recover from there. You can recover from there. So any of these areas down in here in the rough, you can recover if you have a Nirvana. You may have some problems if you don't. The yellow line is a great line if you got lower developed clubs, because it doesn't take a lot of effort to get up into that area. The black line, okay, let's talk about the black, just the black side. I like to do a combination of the white and the black line. I do not like engaging this area when you're playing this area that's down in here. I don't want anything to do with this. This right here looks flat on this picture, but it's like a freaking ski jump. And it's not a flat ski jump. It's running, not only is it running in an upward direction here, but it's running in a side direction. So if you hit it perfect where you were aiming, you'll probably get the trajectory you're looking for. If you hit it low or if you hit it high, you're going to end up going off in this direction, or you're going to end up flying off in this direction. And I'm not talking about just like a one ring grate in that direction. You could end up easily in the sand or the rough on a one ring grate if you hit that ski jump the wrong way. I'm not interested in hitting that ski jump ever. I'm not a big fan of hitting those types of things on any holes. Where I want to get is I want to get up into this area right here so that I have a short iron to the cup. And you can bring out a bigger power ball and you can get up there in your wedge. But you don't have to end up in your wedge in order to have the shot that you're looking for. So what I normally do is bring an extra mile and a kingmaker. And my red line is like right in this area right here. And what I'm trying to do is give myself 2 to 3 rings of separation. So my ball guide's going like this. And what I'm trying to do is trying to land out in this area and use my curl to bring me back over to the cup. So my curl and my side spin. So it's pretty much max top spin, as much side spin as you can get on, and then max curl to try and get yourself back over to this fairway. Now you can, if you overshoot, if you hit too far great to the left, you can end up, you know, getting caught up in this, but if you got a nirvana, you can recover. I very seldom ever end up over on this side. But once again, if you end up over on that side, you're typically going to end up far forward up in this area, and you can easily get on with a nirvana. One of the things that I do that's a little different than when I first started playing this hole is I used to bring nothing but backspin stuff to this hole. But I found that if you're out here with your short iron, if you've got an upper developed Hornet, you're going to be able to bring your most accurate short iron, and it has enough to get you to the cup. It doesn't take a lot of movement, and you can go right at the cup. And I was doing a 10% adjustment on my Hornet straight to the hole, wherever my Hornet was. So if I was at max club, it's 1 per ring. If I was at mid club, I'm playing my mid number. And in my case, that's 1.75. If it's at minimum club, it's at 2.0. So wherever you're playing, whatever you want to play it at, whatever its distance is. And I was playing a plus 10%. And when I switched to a Hornet, I actually started, this hole became, started getting picking up a lot of eagles on this hole. If you're going to bring a backspin club, if you've got a thorn, whichever one between your thorn and your claw has the best ball guide and then the best accuracy, that's the club. So at some point your thorn gets better ball guide than your claw, even though the claw is more accurate. But you can bring a claw if you've got lower developed stuff and you don't have an upper developed thorn, or you can bring a thorn. But you can also get it done with a Hornet. All right, that was hole number 4. I like this hole. There's a lot of different ways that we can go at it. But I do like bouncing from the black side over here and then bringing myself back over to the white line. Hole number 5 is going to be Granite Point, hole number 3. And it has been a long time since we played this. I think the Platinum Tournament was the last time we played this. When was the Platinum Tournament? That was in October of 2018. So it's been a while since we played this hole. And I was able to pick up a video from the Platinum Tournament where we played it. You can play. This is one of the racetrack holes. And my understanding is that they have made some kind of a change here, and I'm not sure which way the change is. You can run on the black side here, where you're running around and you're doing this, where you're trying to get your ball. And this hill, it looks flat here, but I mean, you've all played this before. This hill looks like this, and then you got this sand trap down here at the bottom. So when you're playing this is just nothing but this is like going to Daytona, and you're hitting off of the banking. I mean, you're trying to get your ball guide. There's a bunch of different areas that you can use out here. I haven't played from this side in a long time, but it seemed like when I was playing from that side, it's either this one or the other one, that on the drive, doing like a plus 10% on the drive, but I think it's going to be super wind dependent on whether or not we do an adjustment. And I'm not sure if they've changed that backboard. It'd be unfortunate if they have, because this is these racetrack holes that are in this course are actually pretty cool. And there's a lot of different ways that you can play them. So coming at it from this side right here, your goal is to be as high as you possibly can when it engages the green so that it drops down towards the cup. And what will happen a lot of times is that you're going to be on this trajectory and you'll be close to the cup. So you got the flagpole here and you'll end up landing right there. You can get a hole-in-one from this side right here. I mean, it is possible, but typically if you can get yourself to where you're rolling on, the lower you're rolling on to the green, the farther below it's going to be. And there is a flat shelf down here, so that if you come on it too low, you could end up getting caught on this flat shelf and actually dribble down and end up down in this area. Ideally, we want to be high on this, and the higher that you can be, the longer you can stay on that trajectory before it drops onto the green, the more it'll roll down towards the cup. I like to play this hole from the white line. And on the white line, it's, once again, it's a crapshoot. But you can come up here and it takes very little movement. I think in the video that I showed, I was trying to find a spot. I was white ring off the sand, white ring off of the transitional area up here with very little maneuver on the ball where it was coming up into this area and floating down. And so I think as far as like hole-in-one goes, this side right here, you have a much better shot because you can find a spot out there that will feed towards the cup. And it tends to feed towards the cup more in this trough right here than anywhere out here because this is all just flat running down towards the cup, running in a downhill direction. Whereas over on this side, you can catch a funnel that'll take you right to the cup. So doing this direction right here, and I'm not sure in the video that I did whether I did a wind adjustment, and I'm sure that we'll, because the deal is that Playdemic has manipulated the stuff. We used to not have to do elevation adjustments. There were some minor adjustments, but it's not like it is now where every hole there's some freaking elevation adjustment. And there's no rhyme or reason, in my opinion, on how this stuff works, because if we're up here and we're hitting down to a green here, we're hitting downhill. So here's your ball. Your ball guide's going here, and here's the terrain. So your ball is carrying farther. So your ball guide shows that you're going to land here, but actually because of the downhill, you're going to carry farther and you're going to go farther forward. So we would add on more wind so that we can actually get our ball guide true for where the first landing spot is. So we all have an understanding how that works. Okay, but when the green is uphill, it's the opposite. It's going to hit the ground, so we should have to take wind off. So like if we had a 1 wind, here we might add on 10%. And if it was uphill, we might have to take off 10%. But it doesn't seem to work out like that as much as it should in Golf Clash, because I can tell you that this spot right here is way uphill from where we're teeing off. So, you know, theoretically, we should have to take some wind off on this hole, but I'm not sure how that'll work. That's why sometimes I may be in mid-club, but I use my max number, especially when I'm using a 100% accurate club, because if I'm going to have to adjust for some made-up number, I'd rather do it where I'm at 1 per ring than do it. Now, I still have to do some adjustment, and now I'm at 1.2 per ring. So the math just got harder because now I have to do a second equation where I have to divide the wind by 1.2 to come up with the number of rings as opposed to just doing it here. So that's the deal. So we'll have to see how this, we haven't played this hole in a long time, so we'll just have to see how it plays out and see what kind of changes they made on it. But I like this hole, and I like this hole from the white side. All right, that was hole number 3. Hole number 6 is Granite Point, hole number 9. This is another hole that we haven't played in a long time, and I don't have a video of this hole. It's been so long since we played this hole in a tournament. And the Royal Open, which was in the spring of 2018, was the last time we played this. I believe that's in May of 2018. That was a while ago. So it's been over 2 years since we played this hole in a tournament, and this is don't have anything listed here as far as them making changes to it. So there really is 3 ways to play this hole. Right, the first way, which is going to be the most common, and I think most people are familiar with it, is playing out into this area right here. And there's 2 ways, well, I suppose there's 4 ways to play this hole. So there's the black line, the white line. You can, depending on where you get out here, you can play around the trees, and it's a totally blind. This is one of the reasons why I love Granite Point, because with Granite Point will teach you, and it used to be in Tour 5, it used to be in the World Links tours. And one of the things I liked about this when I first started playing was this particular course, more than any other course, teaches you how to play blind shots, where you're out in this area right here. I can get my pen to work. You're out in this area, and your ball guides, you can't get your ball guide because of these trees. You've got to get your ball guide going out in this direction. And so you have no idea whether you've got enough top spin, side spin, curl, you have nothing. You have to practice that shot in order to get it down. And so what you can do is you can set up, I usually set up 2 to 3 rings off that transitional surface. And it's all about looking out here and seeing whether or not you think you're, if you draw an arc and going, okay, my ball's going to land right here. If I put curl on it and it's got enough to make it stop as it comes up to the cup, and then trying to get your curl right. So it's one of the things I like about this tour is that it makes you learn how to use those types of skills. Getting an eagle, getting an albie on this hole is going the black line is super low percentage because it is a totally blind shot. You have a little bit better shot going on the white line, but you have to be in the right spot. So there is some paths that you can take through these trees. There's some lanes. And if you're in the right spot out here on the white line, you can follow one of those lanes and get yourself out into this area. Now, you may not, because of the lane, because of the trees that are here, you may not be able to engage your side spin. You may not be able to put on any curl to get the ball to go up towards the cup, but you can get it in that general direction, just depending on where you're at. And especially if you're lower, like you really made the turn down here, there's a pretty good gap right in this area, and this line will get you more towards the cup and at least give you a pretty good look at albie, just depending on the lane. But you definitely, if you're taking this white line and going through these trees, you absolutely need to hit perfect. Because if you don't hit perfect, you're going to clip one of those trees, and then you're in the brown stuff big time. A shot that I like to play on this hole, and it's a very difficult shot to set up. So another way to go at this hole, and I like this shot a lot because you can recover with a Spitfire or a Nirvana, is to try and go from the tee box. If I can draw here. Let's get our angles right. Is going from the tee box. Wait till the garage door closes. Going from the tee box here. We're off in this direction, trying to pick up this little bit of fairway. And trying to get with max topspin and as much side spin as I can, but you can't use a lot of curl because these trees are in the way. Of trying to get my ball to bounce here, clip this rough, and just bleed out right here in front, because now I have a straight in short iron shot right to the cup. And I'm coming at the cup because here's the pin and here's the green, and it is downhill. Okay, and there's not really there's a little teeny bit of flat area here, but for the most part, it's downhill. So when I'm coming at it from this spot, I'm coming up the hill to the cup, and I'm involving less of the break. So you can get a truer trajectory to the cup. For me on this hole right here, if I'm really trying to go for albie, this is the shot that I'm going to take. Because even if you end up in the rough down here, you have a straight in shot with your rough iron. Even if you end up in the sand down here, you have a straight in shot with your sand iron. Okay, so you've got in all three positions, you could potentially put yourself in a much better albie shot than you will from the black line. Because from the black line, it's a totally blind shot. So I would rather take a shot with my Nirvana or my Spitfire that goes straight to the cup than to take a shot from over here where I know I can get on, but I have no clue where it's going to end up. Another way that you can do this, Buster's in there barking his brains out. Hold on one second. All right. Had to let Buster into the garage. So now he's out here running around. All right. So we got 2 shots that we can take from over here. Look at all those lines. We got 2 shots over here going around, going through the trees. We've got a shot where we can bounce off of this area, trying to bleed out into this so that we've got a short iron coming into the cup. You can also come down into this area right here from the tee box and try and bridge the gap over the sand and try and lay yourself up in this area. And you have a little bit more room over here if you wanted to do like a max overpower hook shot where you could land out in this area and try and get yourself out into the front. So there are some possibilities down here. I have not had a lot of success. I've seen people a bunch of people hit down here, and I've tried the shot because it seems like, you know, we could figure out some way from here to get ourselves out into here more consistently than this shot where we're getting through. But I'm going to explore. These are the only two shots that I'm going to explore this week, is coming down here and this shot right here to try and get myself over into the fairway so that I've got a straight up shot to get onto the green, as opposed to these two. And these two shots right here, I will tell you, depending on the clubs that you have and your experience level, it can be difficult just to get over here, because this is one of those shots where your ball guide's going like this, and you've got to bring side spin and possibly a little bit of curl in order to get it around the corner, but you have to watch your topspin. You can't put on max topspin. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of topspin or you're going to bleed off into this rough. And if you bleed off into that rough, you're sunk. I mean, sunk. And you do not want to end up in the rough out here. So setting these two shots up right here can be a little bit tricky. And you're definitely going to be close down in this area right here. You're going to want to leave yourself a couple rings of separation so you can catch a great to the right. But it can be difficult to set yourself up in there. I just think that the shots on the white and the black line are suboptimal as far as like trying to get Albie. So the whole goal here is to make sure that we don't put our eagle at risk, but we give ourselves a legitimate shot at Albie. And I think our best shot for that is either going to be down in this area or trying to get from here over. This one just is, it seems problematic unless you have upper developed clubs. Now, we haven't played this since we've got extra mile 9. So with an extra mile 9 and the extra topspin and a little bit of extra curl, this shot right here, getting over into this area, might be a lot easier than it used to be. This shot right here might be a lot easier than it used to be. But these are the only two shots that I'm going to be focusing on this week. All right. What hole was that? That was hole number 9. Hole number 7 of the tournament is going to be Granite Point, hole number 5. And I got no video for this one either. This is another one of the racetrack holes. And there is 2 ways that you can play this hole. You can play the black line, where once again we're trying to bring the ball around the racetrack. It's very sloped in here. I mean, you can see this deep ass shadow right here. So this hill looks like this. And when you hit on it, you're just trying to float around. You're trying to stay as close to the top as you can, because once again, this is like the other hole. The farther that you can travel out here before you engage the green and it hits the break and starts dropping down to the hole, the better odds that you're going to be on track to the cup. But you have this is a roll the freaking dice. This is like going to the craps table. You could set this shot up exactly the same way 15 times in a row on this little racetrack and end up with 15 different results, just because of the nature of these types of shots. The other way that you can go at it is you can go, there is a lane through the trees where you can come out and you can try and come right here and go straight up to the cup. This shot right here, you better hit perfect. I mean, it's one of those types of shots. If you don't hit it perfect and you don't set it up right, and I am 100% sure, because this is a difficult shot in the past, that there is some type of an elevation adjustment that we have to do in order to make sure that we clip this area correctly. But there is 2 ways that we can come at this hole. We can go through the lane in the trees, or we can come over here and do the racetrack to try and get to it. And I will be honest, it's been so long since I've taken this shot over here, I can't even remember how to set it up. So we'll just have to figure it out as the week goes on. Once I get on the hole and play it a couple times, it'll all come screaming back to me. But I am going to explore this, because if I can get a better straight up shot right at the cup and try and avoid the racetrack, it might be worth the effort of trying to work on this shot. But we'll have to see how this hole is playing out and which way the wind's blowing. If the wind's blowing with us, it'll be a much easier shot to go through here, because we're not making any errors as far as adjustment to the left and the right. We'll have to see how this hole plays out. These racetrack par 3s, we don't play these holes very often, and they're fairly low percentage. But if we can increase our odds even a little, that'll be huge on these holes. Huge. Hole number 8 is hole number 8 of Granite Point, and this hole is reportedly have some changes. My understanding, I read a post on this. There's a sand trap in here, where we would normally do this particular rough bump. So there's really 4 ways. Well, there's a bunch of different ways you can play it. You can play out here, that's 1. You can try and drive out to this area where the black line's at, that's 2. You could do the rough bump in the past. We may not be able to do that anymore, that's 3. You could hit here, that's 4. You could hit here, that's 5. So we kind of have, there's, 5 different ways, and there's a bunch of variations within those ways that we could play this hole. I think hole shot number 4, when you're playing from the upper tees, from the pro tees, is probably a better spot than in rookie. Because when you're playing from the pro tees, you may have a hard time. Like you may be able to play shot number 5, where your first landing spot is here. Now, if you're playing shot number 5 from rookie, you're going to need to use a marlin ball and an extra mile. And you need the marlin because your red line, you're right at your red line. So when you go to make your adjustment, you're going to be right at your red line. And so you're going to want to be as far forward as you can, but there's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's a plus 10%, at least a plus 10% wind adjustment that we need to do on this, because it's so easy to get thrown into that rough right there and clip that rough, especially if you got a forward moving wind. And you want to make sure that whatever your bounce is here is on spot, because a lot of times what you're doing from this spot is you're trying to do a you got first bounce, second bounce, rough bump, and then bleeding out. And you want to make sure that you hit that rough correctly. Now you can try and come from here and try and hit the fairway and bring it around. But it's going to be very hard to do that. First bounce, second bounce, if your ball's coming in at this angle, you're going to end up, typically, when I shot in the past, you end up over in this area a lot because you over curl it. I found that if you're using this shot, it's best if the rough bump is still there. We could do a rough bump and try and bleed out of the rough to get on. You can do the straight up rough bump. That takes a tight and an extra mile. You can do that with a lower developed extra mile. And what you're looking for is your red line to be like up in this area right here, so that you can engage a little bit of this rough and bleed forward. The black line just trying to hit straight over, I find this to be a very difficult thing to do as well, because you're trying to bridge this gap, which means that you have to put topspin on, but then you immediately need to come to a stop, and it's very easy to end up overshooting and bleeding off down here to the bottom. The shot that I'm going to take on this hole is I'm going to start off over on this side right here with a QB, and I'm going to use backspin, side spin. And you can't put on max curl because of these trees over here, but you need to put on some curl so that I can get the ball to come in like this and just bleed up towards the cup. In the last 3 times we played this hole, the first 2 tournaments, the last 3, the first 2 of those 3, I was killing it on this hole doing this shot right here. In the last tournament, I came out here and I freaking jacked this hole up on the weekend round. And I think I missed it both times. And that's totally unacceptable, because this hole, you have got to get a birdie on, or excuse me, an eagle. You cannot get a birdie on this hole. If you want to keep up with the Joneses, you have to get an eagle on this hole. And I really do think that the easiest way to get an eagle that's like repeatable over and over again, and we can use a 100% accurate club, is to take this shot right here with a QB and a Kingmaker. And then that'll bleed us up to it. We'll have to work on, I think when I was taking it with the QB, I was putting on about 5, maybe 6 backspin, maximum side spin, and some curl to bring it around the bend, just to bring it up into this area. And I don't really care if I'm short right here and just have the pitch up. The main thing is to be, and I would rather take a pitch than end up over here and have to take that long putt. A lot of times what you'll find yourself is this green has a shelf on it, and what'll happen is that you'll ride in on the top of the shelf, and then it'll fall off the shelf and it'll bleed down here towards the bottom, because there's like a little cliff where you're on the flat up here, and then it rolls down towards the fringe. And so it's hard to bring yourself around and stay on this and be on track to go right to the cup. So you'll find yourself a lot down here, and I really don't care. As long as I'm not in the rough down there, if I'm on the bottom or if I'm up here in the top and I've got that short pitch, I'll take that every day. every day. But this is definitely a hole right here. There's 2 par 4s in this that we absolutely positively have got to get an eagle on, and this is one of them. Absolutely. And reportedly they've made changes to this hole, but like I said, I don't know what it is. What I read is that there's a sand trap in here, so that we're not going to be able to do that rough bump. But that's not going to affect me at all because I've been doing it from over here. Hole number 9 is hole number 6. And reportedly, there's changes to this hole as well. Now, from the picture I looked at, and hold on one second, let me go find that picture. All right, so this is the hole that they've shown. Like, this is the picture of the hole that they've shown. So you can see, well, I'll switch between screens here. You can see this first fairway right here. Like, here's the guitar body. I always think of this as the guitar hole. And you can see that this fairway right here, which we never use, typically we bounce off of this right here, trying to bleed ourselves up into this area so that because you can overhit. Like, a lot of people I see come on this hole and they hit out here and they're like, yeah, man, I pounded it out there. Well, guess what? You're behind the trees, okay? That's one of the things I like about Granite Point too, that it teaches you where to set your ball. That distance is not always as important as location. So if you're short up here, you're screwed because you can't reach the top up here to get to the cup. If you're long, you're behind the trees and you're screwed. There is a spot right here. Okay, but we never use this because even if you hit down into this area down here, you'd have to go to this spot in order to bring it around. So like, look at how the green is here. We've got a couple sand traps, we've got a sand trap off, and then the fairway kind of terminates. And then let's look at the picture of the hole that they've shown. And so we've got, now what we have is we've got, instead of one big fairway that goes like this, now we've got a second fairway where we could potentially hit up into this area to come at the green like this. Now, I'm not sure where, as far as distance, like where that plays out, but even this stuff up here is a little bit different. Let's go look at that. Let me look at that one more time. Yeah, because you can see on the picture here, like these fairways up here, we've got this little ramp. So there's really nothing out in this area here. There's really nothing. But now we've got where that ramp is at. Yeah, if I can get my pen to quit working. You see the ramp is like right in this area right here. So they've expanded that fairway out. So they have made some changes on this, and I'm not sure. My understanding is that it's now tougher to get from here over to this area than it was in the past. And I'm not sure if the trees are still here. I know they've made several changes on this hole as far as like sun direction, because there used to be some trees out here that would throw shadows across, and I always had a marking spot. I always wanted to hit to that shadow. I knew if I was past the shadow, I hit too far and I was in the trees. If I was too short of the shadow, then I had too long of a shot to get to here. And so there was a spot. And then they changed the shadows in one tournament where the sun was not, instead of the sun shining in this direction, the sun was shining in this direction, and it took that shadow off the course. But it'll be curious to see like what this area out here looks like, as far as like getting up to the cup. Because distance wise, from where the cup is, if we draw a line out and we do an arc, like from here, getting to this little pad and then getting enough topspin so that you could clear down here to roll down to the cup was like all of your club. And so it'll be curious to see from here, because now we're going to be off in this trajectory. Like, how do we make that swing? So I'll be curious to see like how these changes affected this. And this really blows, because this, as tough as this par 5 is actually one of my favorite, if not my favorite hole in the game. And one of the things I love about Granite Point holes is that, like I said, it's all about laying the ball up in the right spot. And so the skills that you have to have as far as making great club choices, making great ball choices, adjusting for the wind properly, recognizing that, yes, I could hit my ball all the way down into there, but that's suboptimal. It's better to lay up right here than it is to hit all the way out. So that I'm in the right spot so that I can actually give myself this particular hole right here has like the gamut. That's why there's a ton of people that hate this hole, is because this hole is not the easiest hole in the world to get an albie on. I'll be the first to admit that, but it is albieable if you put yourself in the right spot every single time. And so having changes made to it doesn't necessarily make me happy. What it does is it in some respects, it may make it easier for everybody to have more success on this hole. And I like it when the holes are harder, where the average player doesn't have success. That's why these holes are so great in one-on-one. If you actually have these holes dialed in, man, you can go out here and smoke people in one-on-one. So we'll have to see how that hole plays out. The other holes that they've reportedly made changes on is hole number 8. Hole number 8. So this is the hole right here we were talking about. Is that the one? That is the one. So they have made some changes as far as they do have a sand trap here. They've changed the configuration of the fairways. So we may or may not be able to come at it from this side right here and then bring it back up to the cup. We may have to play it out from this side and then bounce it over. So we'll have to play this hole by ear. But this is going to be a hole. I don't care what Playdemic does on this hole, unless they make this hole 500 yards and they do the deal. We've got to get an eagle on this hole, because these are the type of holes that, unless they completely, absolutely redesigned everything on it, we should still be able to get up either on the green or right off the green in one, so that we have a short chip or we have a putt to get our eagle. What are some of the other holes they made changes on? Hole number 5 of the tournament, which is Granite Point hole number 3. Let's see what the look is here. And it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell on this how those changes are going to play. And this is another one of the racetrack holes, so I'm not sure how those are going to play. Well, they're going to have to wait and see, like, on how those play out, whether or not we have to completely come up with whole brand new shots, or whether we've got shots that have some potential to continue to work. This hole right here is depressing that they made changes on, because I finally figured out, and it doesn't look like the changes here are massive. We'll have to wait and see once again on this, like how it plays out in the field. It looks like from here we can probably do, but it looks like they've taken out some of the rough up here that we were using, because the way that the rough was playing on this hole up here at the green, you can see the separation. Like, there's the start of the rough and there's the beginning of the green. So they've cut that rough down. They've made that rough a lot shorter. So we're not going to be able to, because the rough before it was like green, fairway, rough, and they were pretty even, whereas now we've got a much bigger fairway area to try and run through. So if the rough bump is still a viable shot here, it's going to take a club that's got more topspin and better ball guide, so that we can see where the hell we're going. All right, that was just kind of a basic walkthrough, just a brief look at the holes. We've got options on a lot of these holes, and we got 4 holes that we've got some changes to. So no matter how long you played them, how little you played them, it's not going to make as big a difference, because we've got 4 holes that we're going to have to try and work out shots on. I will try and catch those during the practice round here and try and get her done. All right. Thanks for watching. Hey, good luck in the tournament. Hopefully everybody has a great time. I love the Granite Point hole, so I'm really excited about it. I'm not so excited that they've changed 4 of the holes, but that's part of the deal. The greenskeepers got bored. They had a little bit of extra money. They went out there and made some changes. All right. Thanks for watching.